Very much a highlights-based sport.
That's the quote that people are running with that got people outraged. But what if I told you that Adam Silver said something in this video that's actually just as bad, and worse yet, no one's covering it?
You were asked about this just recently, about kind of the fragmentation, the number of different places that games will run. This is the quote that kind of came out and was very picked apart. This is an ongoing issue for the league. There's a huge amount of our content people consume for free. This is very much a highlights-based sport. Want to clarify that?
I seen a comment on my previous video saying he had to backpedal. Adam Silver backpedaled? And I found the clip, and yeah, he did backpedal a little bit on the comments he made over a week ago now. Oh, man.
A portion of the question, the end of the question, was about the impact of social media. That's what I was answering on our sport. And what I was saying in a very positive way, and I don't think I think it's additive to those who watch our games live and increase the likelihood that they'll watch our games live. By saying highlights-based, I meant, when I watch the traditional sports center, and they have the top 10 plays, and 5 of those are NBA plays, I'm like, yeah, I'm not thinking like, oh, damn, like more highlights are being promoted from our league. I mean, conventionally, the reaction that was like, that's really good. It's a live game full of highlights. I mean, by definition, highlights aren't necessarily past tense. I mean, like when the NBA games are packed with action, and I guess it was misconstrued.
Unfortunately, chat. Okay, that was cringe. I'm not a streamer. Okay. Adam Silver is actually right that it was misconstrued, as he said this following up a preamble in the question that Tanya asked, basically saying that even though, fans, it's becoming more expensive to watch the games and to watch the games both live and online, there is an entry point that is social media that she's well aware of. And then the question was asked, Adam Silver, what do you think about all this and how this will shape up the next generation of fans? To which Adam Silver starts his answer off by basically addressing the preambles, noting that he saw the publication they made about, adding up all the prices of all these streaming services and what it adds up to. But then Adam's like, hey, man, we added more broadcast exposures on television that will make it, that will make it so that there's 5 times more broadcast television games that are accessible for free on the marketplace. That's what Adam Silver says. Then he goes on to say, that's just one example of ways that people can watch the games essentially for free. There's another way that people can access the games for free, and that's watching the highlights. As he points out here, it is very much a highlights-based sport. That's where the quote comes in. And many people, that's where they stopped the video. They stopped the clip there. I even did that in the previous video because I didn't want to touch upon it too much because, quite frankly, that statement alone is damning enough. But I'll play the rest of this clip where Adam Silver talks about this so that you get the whole context of what he said. And unsurprisingly, the answer he actually gives is just as disappointing.
There's a huge amount of our content that people can essentially consume for free. I mean, this is very much a highlights-based sport. Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, you name it, any service, the New York Times for that matter, to the extent that your content is not behind a paid firewall. There's an enormous amount of content out there. YouTube, by another example, that is advertising based that consumers can consume. I think this is a new world now of streaming media. I think we're paying a lot of attention to that. It was one of the discussions we had with our media partners. I think not just the cost of the games. And I think most people are conditioned to paying a certain amount for high value content, but also the discovery of those games. Again, I'm a fan of many different sports, and I think we've all had that experience where you're going to Google to find the game you want to watch because the world's changed. It's not just automatically in the place you thought it would be. So, but ultimately, I'll talk about it in terms of reach, and how you reach your consumers. It's interesting because of the disruption in the regional sports network business. I never would have predicted this was coming 10 years ago, but a lot of our local games are moving back to broadcast television. In fact, we have more games on broadcast television locally than we've had any time in recent history. So, we're continuing to look at it, but ultimate answer is we think a lot about it. We know we have mass appeal. We on a global basis, we're literally reaching billions of people, and we don't want to disenfranchise people by working with partners that are creating price points that make it inaccessible to them.
Wowzers. So his answer was ultimately that they're thinking about it and that they don't want to work with partners that disenfranchise fans from being able to access games that are too expensive. Basically, not acknowledging the fact that you're already doing that and that Amazon Prime, NBC, Peacock, all these services added up together, jumbled up, the price point is already too high for the average fan. And that's not going to get acknowledged or even addressed by Adam Silver in this presser. And let's see if he addresses it in this in this little back and forth here with Front Office Sports.
But the point I was trying to make is that there is this community of social media followers, frankly, globally estimated at roughly around 2.5 billion people connect with the NBA in some way. Any brand, any programming source would love to have those 2.5 billion people. Now, I think the challenge for the league office, and this is something I've been talking a lot about with my colleagues internally, is how do we then ensure that we're converting a highlights-based fan, for example, to a live game viewer? By no means we don't want it to be a substitute. We're not going to probably have, especially because of time zone issues when you're a global sport, it's going to be highly unlikely that everywhere in the middle of the night, people are going to be stop and watch our games. But to me, it's something, as I said, that like now that with these incredibly exciting moments, how do we demonstrate to our fans that they don't want to miss them live? And I think part of it, as we've been talking to those three partners, and ESPN is revamping what they're doing through their direct-to-consumer business, is how do we make our telecast that much more engaging? And again, there's the competition among them, even though they have different games, I think, to, who's going to do the best job. We have a innovation arm at the NBA, really through NBA Entertainment that I used to run, where we're developing best practices that we think we can bring them, some AI-based, some, using, next generation stats and everything else that we can help engage those viewers. But ultimately, in a competitive marketplace, back to the personalization I was talking about earlier, we have to find new ways to engage those fans as you have unlimited options, because it's, put aside NBA highlights for a second. There's a reason that YouTube is now the #1 source of video programming right now, because the variety, the selection is incredible. And I'm not talking about YouTube TV, I'm just talking about YouTube. And so, sure, I don't want to take away some of our programming from YouTube, because I think it's teaser programming to watch the games live. But, so I accept that what I said was misconstrued. I certainly didn't intend it that way.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, bro. Now he's just talking about AI, YouTube, innovation. Like, what is going on, bro? Like, this is not at all what the question was even about. And now we're just diverting from the actual issue, which is price point, accessibility. Come on, let's get to the program already.
Again, I think that it's a positive thing that there's so many highlights in every game. But I guess to completely clarify, those are highlights that ideally we'd like people to consume live, not after the fact.
And that, my friends, is what we call burying the lead, talking about a non-issue, which is Adam Silver's words being misconstrued. And now we're not even addressing the main issue, which is price point, accessibility, fans not being able to afford watching these games. But that's not where the video ends, because prior to that questioning, Adam Silver did touch upon that issue a teensy bit. And I don't think there's going to be enough coverage on it, so I'm going to cover that part here to make sure that, we understand his position on the issue, because he does somewhat address it. Oh man, it's really sad.
I'm glad you talk about technology. I was on this stage a year ago with Mark Lazarus, the chairman of NBC, and something he said really stuck with me. We were talking about streamers getting in, and I said these tech companies that, they're just tech companies, are increasingly in the room when we're bidding for live rights. And he said, I still think we have an advantage over them because we have the broadcast arm.
So the person monitoring this is asking Adam Silver basically about a quote that an NBC executive said, basically meaning that, what's it called? There are tech companies that are basically trying to get the rights to broadcast these games, but that he thinks NBC and other broadcasting arms have the advantage because they have the arms, the means which to broadcast the games already. But then he says here further that years later, they're seeing that this might not be true, as Amazon Prime came in and basically took the third slot from TNT, which was a previous broadcasting partner.
And increasingly, I'm not sure that's true. I'm not sure that the broadcast does have an advantage, because it seems like it's just about the biggest bidder, and you bring an Amazon in, and Amazon kind of steals that third package.
I'm just glad that we got to see Adam Silver squirm his way through this one, because it's a funny way that he answers this.
I wouldn't say it's just about the biggest check or bidder. I mean, I think as we look at the landscape now with the capabilities of three partners, Disney, ESPN, been with us for over 20 years, knows the league well. ESPN has, an important part is an important position as part of the television sports landscape. Amazon is a newer entrant, as Maria was saying, returning to the tradition of NBC. I also, I think if I were Mark, part of what I would add to his answer, and we talked about this when we were negotiating with Comcast, I forget the exact number, but they present themselves as having 8,000 engineers globally who work on Peacock. And, I was over in Paris watching the coverage following basketball, but also when I was back in the United States, was using Peacock and looking at the way they were laying out all the different competitions, the navigation to them, the discovery, the different approaches. So to me, they are very much a technology company now. And I know that's the way Brian Roberts looks at it. And I think the transition that, Bob Iger, when he returned to Disney, I think he was very much acknowledged publicly that they needed to go through innovation and development phase to become more like Netflix in many ways, that they had fallen behind from a technology standpoint. And then obviously Amazon, no one, knows technology better than that company. So it's, you do need that blend, I think, of media and technology. And part of my response to your initial question, I don't want to be Pollyannish about it, that there's going to be disruption for our fans. Those who are, used to finding our games on TNT or, don't know how to get to games on Amazon Prime, or even when you go to Prime, what that even means from a brand standpoint. No, and I do too. And I think that, and I recognize that I'm going to be sitting on some stage a few months from now and people are going to be complaining and saying, you have three partners now, it's hard to find the games. So it's incumbent on us. And for example, we're going to be promoting the fact that, through our free app, the NBA app, it's going to be a front door to all those services. So, as opposed to going to Google to find our games, we can say, go to the app. You of course, need to be a subscriber to Peacock and ESPN and Amazon, but you will be able to get to the games directly there. And I think over time, the technology will make that much easier.
Adam, you're so close. You were so damn close to getting it, bro. You were so close. Yes, it'll be easier for people to find the games if they only have to go through one app, NBA app. Oh, let me click. Oh, I have to pay for Peacock, Amazon Prime, and ESPN Plus. I have to pay for all that? Wait, huh? How much is that? Wait, I don't live in the US. I live in Canada. Wait, I have to pay how much? CAD? And even for the people that live in the US, but they live too close to a region that hosts an NBA team or multiple NBA teams, well, they even can't even watch those games on certain services. So they have to go through other means to watch it. Adam Silver still not addressing the main issues and skirting the line, talking about the disruption, right? He talks about how there's going to be a disruption for the fans. And yet when attempting to address the disruption and, the lack of accessibility, only touches on a mere droplet of a solution that could help with the situation. Yeah, let's just make an app that is, quite frankly, hard to use. You need an NBA ID account to even access it, whatever the hell that is. And then you have to use a buggy app to access the games that, let's be honest, Adam Silver, nobody's going to use your app to access the games when Google is freely available, when Amazon Prime and these services, literally, you could just go to their app to watch the games directly there. What is the point of having a middleman app, which is what the NBA app is trying to be now, to have them bridge the gap for the price point is still the same, right? You say the app is free, but the app is also another place you have to go to access a game that you can access directly on the services that you listed. What the hell is even the point of the app in the first place? What the hell are we talking about, Adam? What the hell are we doing? Is this guy serious? This is the commissioner of the NBA, bro? And I'm not gonna lie, the media needs to do a better job too. We all fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. We took the bait. We took the red herring, which was him saying that it was a highlight-based sports. That was not the quote we were supposed to talk about. We were supposed to talk about another quote. As we stare at his shoulder right there. Oh my goodness. We're just burying the lead, which is that Adam Silver is not addressing the issue. That's right in front of his nose. The issue at hand, which is money. These people are going to say, it wasn't about the check that Amazon gave us, right? The money wasn't really the factor that made it so that they could get a streaming rights over TNT, a longtime partner. No. They're going to come out here and say it wasn't about the money, but at the same time not address the fact that fans are being priced out of not just the games on the arenas, but now they're being priced out of watching their games on streaming services because of how expensive it's becoming. I don't think Adam Silver lives in this world, so he doesn't understand how fucked people are by, quite frankly, inflation, wage not keeping up with that said inflation, and how basically a lot of people are basically loaning money to spend on their everyday goods. They're taking credit card payments. They're taking auto loans. They're taking payday loans, for God's sake. They're taking all these. What was it? What was this new thing that I recently learned about? They call themselves Earned Wage Access, EWA, Instant Pay Earned Income Early Wage Access, which is essentially a payday loan that acts as a paycheck that is given before the paycheck date. Like, bro, companies are finding ways to basically steal your money that you're making from your job. Bro, it's getting to the point where people are trying to get their money in advance because they can't pay off a lot of their debts. That's how bad we are. That's how fucked we are. But because Adam Silver lives in a different world than all of us and doesn't understand the difficulties that families are going through, he's not going to do anything but line up his pockets because it's in his best interest to ignore all this. And quite frankly, this quote of highlights-based sports is really detracting. It's really doing a disservice to what we really should be pushing, which is for Adam Silver to actually address the issue at hand. Nobody is going to press him on it because of that freaking red herring that now everybody is, including myself, going after. It's sad. That's just another reality in this world that we call fucked.
So it's incumbent on us, and like, for example, we're going to be promoting the fact that, through our free app, the NBA app, it's going to be a front door to all those services. So, as opposed to going to Google to find our games, we can say, go to the app